and T's. Let's hit the chorus to the Dougie beat.
Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it.
Everybody learning, everybody learning, everybody learn now. Teach me how to solve it.
Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it. Teach me how to solve it.
Everybody learning, everybody learning, everybody learn now. Teach me how to solve it. Before you solve it.
Hey guys, it's Miss Kearney here. Thank you all for tuning into the Kearney Math Show. Before we get started, if you will go ahead and write on the top entry number 3. So on today's episode of the Kearney Math Show, we are going to be featuring our U11 Bowling review number 2, which we're talking about expressions and equations. So this is entry number 3. So today we're going to be talking about how to simplify expressions and solve equations. And guys, to be honest, just based off of how you all have been doing on your math sprints, I feel like you guys are in an awesome place. Many of you are already doing a great job knowing how to simplify expressions. Many of you can solve an equation just like it's super simple. So I think you guys are already in a really great place. So before we get started, let's just go over some pretty important pieces of information. So the first thing about combining like terms. Remember, like terms are things that are like. You can only put the apples with the apples and the pairs with the pairs. You're going to put x's with x's and y's with y's and constants with constants. So when you are going in and you're circling your like terms, remember to circle the sign in front. And after you do that, you're going to use integer rules. So like if the signs are the same, you're going to add. Signs are different, we're going to subtract. Okay? So let's go over an example. So you're going to circle your signs in front and then use integer rules. So our example is 3x plus 2y minus 6 plus 8x minus 3y. Okay, so we want to go in, and what, I don't know if you remember, but what we did when we were combining like terms, when we first learned about it, we used different shapes to help us symbolize different like terms. So I'm going to circle all my x's first. So I see 3x. What do you see that is like 3x? Many of you may be saying 8x, but what do we need to include with the 8x? The plus sign, because that will tell me whether it's positive or negative. Okay? Next, let's square my y. So what do you see that's like plus 2y? Minus 3y. Okay? And then we have the minus 6 that's just a constant. It's different than the others. Okay? So now we've circled our like terms. Now we need to use our integer rules to combine them. So let's start with the x's. We have 3x plus 8x. So both of those are positive and you're just adding. So 3x plus 8x, we have 11x. And then you have the positive 2y. And then we see that minus 3y. So what do we treat that minus 3y like? Like a negative 3y. So you have positive 2y, negative 3y. The signs are different. So if you remember, same signs add, different signs subtract. So the signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. So 3y minus 2y is y, or 1y, but you could just put y. And then take the sign of the greater absolute value. So which one of those has more value? There are more negatives there, so it's going to be minus y. Okay? And then we didn't do anything with the minus 6, so we're just going to bring it down. Okay? So when combining like terms, use shapes to help you signify like terms. Circle the sign in front, and then use integer rules. Okay? Next, distributive property. You guys are already doing a great job with this. One key important thing that I want to make sure you know is when you're doing distributive property, you want to make sure that you distribute that number to everything in the parentheses. Okay? So we want to distribute this minus 3, this negative 3 to everything. Okay? And remember, treat plus signs like they're positive, treat subtraction like it's negative. So we have negative 3 times x, and we get negative 3x. And then negative 3 times, what do you see that 4 is? It's got a plus in front of it, so that's positive 4. So negative 3 times positive 4 would be negative 12. So we would write minus 12. Okay? So really pay attention to your signs. Especially, guys, if you see something like this, where it's kind of a long one. Okay? You want to make sure you know that this 2 is being distributed to everything in its parentheses. And this 3, what do you see that's in front of the 3? It's a minus. So that's a negative 3 that's being distributed to everything inside. Okay? So we would have 2x plus 6. And then negative 3 times x would be negative 3x. So we bring down minus 3x. And then negative 3 times positive 5 would be negative 15, so minus 15. And then, of course, from there, you could combine like terms. So we have 2x. What is like 2x? Minus 3x. And what is like the plus 6? The minus 15. So if we combine our like terms, 2x and minus 3x would be negative 1x. And then a positive 6 and a negative 15, signs are different, so I would subtract. So 15 minus 6 is 9. And then we would take the sign of the bigger number, which would be negative 15, so we do minus 9. Okay? So make sure when you're doing that distributed property, you're paying attention to the sign that needs to be distributed with that number. Okay? Next, solving inequalities. A couple of important things about solving inequalities. First, just a really quick review. If you do not have a line, that means less than or greater than, which means it's not equal to. So my dot is going to be an open circle. Okay? That means we're not filling it in because it can't be equal to. Now, if you have the line, that means it is equal to, so the circle is closed. And then a super, super mega important piece of information is that you must remember to flip the inequality sign when you multiply or divide by a negative. On both sides. I'm putting on both sides because sometimes people see a negative in the problem and they automatically think I'm going to flip it, but it's when you're solving that equation and you flip the negative, using it on both sides. Okay? So I want to come down and solve one problem if you get you started, and then until you are called over to work with Ms. Kearney, you're just going to use these 3 steps we just talked through and solve as many of these equations or expressions as you can, and then check the answer key. Okay? So the one I'd love for us to do together is, I want us to come over and do number 39 on the bottom right corner. Okay, so we have 12 minus x is less than 8. Okay, so we've got to solve and figure out what values x could be. Okay, because x is, we got to figure out what value could we say 12 minus what would give me numbers less than 8. Okay, so we're going to solve. Remember, you solve an inequality just like an equation. The only thing that's different is sometimes we have to flip that inequality sign. So before we get started, I see there's a minus x there. And Miss Kearney, every time I see a minus x, I don't want to get tripped up and forget that minus x is telling me that is technically a negative 1 there. Okay? So go ahead and put, anytime you see a minus x, put that 1 in there to help you be reminded that there's a negative 1 in front of that x. Okay? So when we're solving this, what do you want to get rid of first? Okay, first of all, we have x times negative 1, and then we have that 12 out front. So we want to get rid of the constant. Okay, how do you get rid of the 12? Now this one's kind of tricky because you have the minus behind it. But think, the minus goes with the x. That 12 is actually positive. So how would you get rid of a positive 12? We would subtract 12. And remember, listen to your teachers, listen to your mother. What you do on one side, you do to the other. So if I subtract 12 on one side, I've got to subtract 12 on the other side. So 12 minus 12, I'm done. I still have that minus 1x. I haven't multiplied or divided anything, so I'm just going to keep bringing my sign down. And then we have 8 minus 12. So what do you notice about their signs? We have 8 and negative 12. So signs are different, so I would subtract. So 12 minus 8 is 4. Take the sign of the larger absolute value, so it'll be positive or negative. There are more negatives there, so it's going to be negative 4. Now, last thing, it looks like x is by itself, but it's still got that negative 1 in front of it. What is happening with the negative 1 and the x? They're being multiplied. So the opposite is to divide. We're going to divide by exactly the number that is there. So divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1. So negative 1 divided by negative 1 cancels out. I'm left with x. And then negative 4 divided by negative 1, negative divided by negative is a positive, and 4 divided by 1 is 4. Now, do you see that I divided by a negative on both sides? I divided by a negative 1 on both sides. So what do I need to remember to do with my sign? Flip it. Okay, so it's saying x is greater than 4. So that means x can be any number bigger than 4. So what are some things that x could be? Let's list out some things. X could be 5. X could be 10. X could be 20. X could be 102. You can keep going. Okay? So x can be any number bigger than 4. So I want you to look at your picture and which one of those highlights the numbers that are bigger than 4. Okay? So, and since there's no line, it can't be equal to, so it's an open circle. So it can't be, we see that A is negative 4. We know it's not that one. We see that D is negative 4, so it's either going to be B or C. And if you see, which one are the numbers shaded bigger than 4? B. Okay? So, take a minute. If you need to go back and rewatch any of the video, do that. And I want you to go through, and I want you to start trying to solve these problems and simplify these expressions and check the answer key when you are finished. All right? And I will be happy to answer any questions you have. All right. Good luck, guys. Make me proud. Peace out, Rainbow Trout. Love you, mean it.